Hello, everyone. My name is Christine Rogers, and I work for an organization called the Walkill River Watershed Management Group. Thank you for joining us for today's workshop that's going to focus on agricultural challenges and opportunities in New Jersey. We're joined by a great panel of speakers today. So I'm going to start off this workshop by introducing each of our speakers and giving you a brief snapshot of their bio. Then they're going to do their presentations, and then we'll leave some time at the end for audience question and answers. All right, so first, our first panelist is Cali Alexander, who is the Policy Committee Chair at the Northeast Organic Farming Association of New Jersey. And Cali's role on the board of NOFA, New Jersey, follows a 35-year career in environmental science and law as a public health administrator. As a licensed health officer and director, Cali managed and delivered years of environmental public service programs at the local level. Cali served as an administrator at the New Jersey Department of Health and played a pivotal role in licensing and compliance in the wholesale, pharmaceutical, seafood and shellfish, aquaculture, and fisheries industries. And then our next panelist is Eric Derby, who's the Sustainable Agriculture Enterprise Program Manager at Foodshed Alliance. And he's been a passionate local food advocate who's 12 years of experience as both the Associate Publisher of Edible New Jersey and a board member of Foodshed Alliance, has been focused on developing a healthy local food movement. And as the program manager of Foodshed Alliance's SAGE program, Eric is driven to directly impact the success of farmers practicing regenerative growing methods. And then finally, we have Erin Schroll, who's the Agricultural Business and Horticultural Science Program Supervisor at Sussex County Community College. And she has experience with her master's program at Oregon State University, where she majored in horticulture and spent her graduate year researching living or green roofs. She moved to New Jersey in 2010 to explore vegetable farming, and she's gotten her hands dirty in beekeeping, estate gardening, and hydroponic farming. But her favorite way to garden is with a purpose, whether building a rain garden, a garden for pollinators, or growing vegetables for food. So please join me in welcoming our speakers today. So what we're gonna do is just start out our session with a short video.
The Northeast Organic Farming Association is dedicated to supporting organic food and agriculture in New Jersey through education, technical assistance, and policy action. Each year, we raise funds to support the annual winter conference, weekly and monthly educational programming, technical assistance and farmer mentoring, and scholarships for students and beginning farmers. This year, your generous donations have made all of this possible. is helpful, you can learn more and donate at nofanj.org.
Okay. I'm so sorry. But again, thank you for knowing about NOFA New Jersey. We are one of 7 chapters among the Northeast. Rhode Island, Connecticut, New York, Maine is, of course, part of MACFA, and of course, Pennsylvania is part of PASA. But the other remaining New England states are all associative 7 chapters. We get together a lot. We do a lot of policy work. We have something called the Interstate Policy Committee, as well as the Interstate Council. We have liaisons with national organizations, the National Family Farm Coalition, as well as the National Organic Coalition. There are many, many pressing issues that you've heard about with farmland, and not only here state issues, but national issues. I had a big decision as I spoke with my wonderful compatriots here, Erin and Eric, as we discussed our seminar, to PowerPoint or not to PowerPoint. That is the question. But I wanted to at least give you a concise PowerPoint about the pressing issues of farmland, not only here in the state of New Jersey, but nationally. It's really quite something. I hope this inspires you. I believe firmly, coming out of 35 years of policy work and regulation, that you can do more with policy than you can do with regulation. It's something I've said throughout my career. Stay passionate. Wake up in the morning when you hear a chicken cry or a rooster crow. That is your call. That is your morning call to get up and do something about policy. We're all fervent. We're all passionate about the environment. All New Jersey constituents vote yes each and every time about the environment, but we're here to protect the farmers, our next generation, food security. These are just some of the passionate issues that we carry forward. You'll hear much more about beginner farmer programs, about soil health, and the environmental benefits that we work toward through organic and regenerative farming. More and more, you see magazines like this, Successful Farming. This is a conventional farming magazine, The Land Issue. You see magazines about the dairy industry. This is a wonderful new food magazine that I get. You can get many wonderful publications. This is called, this month's is Adapt to Survive. So realize that the essence of farming is always fluid. The survival of farming is very fluid. Community farms, family farms, and I'd like to really heighten your issues on many different levels. Please, I'll leave my cards here. I have some great resource materials. Please grab them. Feel encouraged. Most of our programs at NOFA New Jersey are free. Okay, most of them have minimum entry fees to get to these wonderful, diverse programs that you saw. We have a wonderful film coming up on Reddington River Farm, the Buffalo Farm, and it has to do, of course, with native indigenous populations here in New Jersey, and I believe it's going to be endless empanadas. Okay, so keep your interest there. But again, we have a dynamite conference, last plug, every year. Again, many groups that we work with here in the state come and represent, exhibit, NRCS, North RC&D, many of the organizations here, 400 people plus. We have a dynamite conference for networking, for all ages, and I encourage you to really engage with NOFA New Jersey. Lastly, membership. It's only $20 a year, and you get a free bandana, and it's a really cool bandana. They're selling like hotcakes. So I recommend, please, go to nofanewjersey.org, and please become a member. You'll be like, I'm so glad I did this. So let me go on with my PowerPoint. Thank you again. Here the pressures on farmland are really great. With regard to New Jersey, the pressure on our land is endless, as you know, with warehouses and such, so I'm not going to touch on that. I'm not going to touch on a lot of the same statistics that, of course, we already live with, we already know about. We go down the street and we see something else developed, and it used to be a farm. Here, on a nationwide level, we have a great organization called American Farmland Trust. They issue reports every 20 years. In the 2020 report, they issued that New Jersey is #1 in the Northeast for saving farmland. But we are also #1 in the Northeast in the pressure on our farmland. If that doesn't tell you to stay firm, to stay active, to stay involved. So with regard to some of just what I kind of teased out of the report, these are the projections now for their 2040 report. And in this report, you can see that potentially, and you can read the slide yourself, that 125,000 acres or potentially will be paved over. That some of the hardest hit counties that they project will be Gloucester, Burlington, and Hunterdon. And they have this three kind of, they have like an eight type criteria, but in their broader strokes, they have these 3 types of criteria. That if the scenario keeps going with business as usual, the development will follow recent patterns. If also the trend of runaway sprawl, which I'm sorry, but I really want to emphasize, is still ongoing. We still have runaway sprawl here in New Jersey. We have so much abandoned commercial sites that really need repurposing, that developers need redirection. We have huge amounts of paved over parking lots that need to be reduced and need to be made into greenways. There's just so much sprawl. And here we go with another fast food place. But please, my soapbox is starting to build, so I'm going to transcend back to my report. But then there's the essence of better built cities. And that, of course, is what Michelle, and who I have deep respect for, touched on with regard to creating cities that really work. But again, I'm in land use for 35 years. I reviewed and approved land as a health director. I'm a 30-year real estate agent as well. Land is my passion. Walking on land is my passion. Farming is my passion. Environment is my passion. So our cities really need to create that affordability. One point I'd like to bring up is that we need to put a cap on rentals. We need to really, really stop that these builders are building townhouses that are rentals. And where has rent gone? Rent's gone to the impossible levels. And ownership for first-time buyers, young couples, is really almost out of reach. So I just wanted to give a little footnote there. And then lastly, with regard to the environment, I'm just going to plug in a couple things that I really think need to change with planning and regional planning, is of course that when do we get to a level that within our watershed, that I heard this from the Bound Brook mayor. Think about Bound Brook. It has a confluence of 3 different waterways around it, and yet now they're buying out what they call the Hidden Valley area. They're making them blue acres. They're saying to those residents that after we've covered, FEMA has covered them 2-3 times, that we will not cover you again should you have an occurrence, a catastrophe. In doing so, I heard the Bound Brook mayor say, when do we get to a point in a watershed, think of it, regional planning, a little less local rule, but we get to a regional planning level where he said, if we get to a 30% build out in a watershed, isn't that enough development? So think about that. So I want to inspire you that our development is still, like Michelle emphasized, like I'm going to emphasize to you, get engaged. Get to your local and county agricultural board meetings. Get to your town council meetings. Fight those warehouses and support farmland, because we have to feed ourselves here in New Jersey. Some of the summaries here, you can see on this chart that, of course, maybe if it's hard to see, you can see that this is nationwide, the potential conversion of farmland. The trend from 2016 to 2040 will convert 18.4 million acres into more developed uses. 6 states will convert over 10% of their lands. More than 20 counties will convert 40% of their lands. And most concerning, conversion will occur on our most productive farmland. So realize that this is not just a state issue in our small but mighty state of New Jersey, but it is a national issue. Again, in their report, they touch on 400 million acres, or 40% of all farmland, is expected to transfer. The average age of a farmer, if you don't know, here in New Jersey, as well as it mimics and reflects nationwide trends, is about 58 to 60 years old. It's actually getting older right now. I think it's going and burgeoning towards 61. So now, of course, this will be the oncoming sale. How do we keep the family farm? There is an urgent need to keep it as a family-owned, community-based farm. Speculative corporate, another big influence that I'm bringing into this slide presentation, and I thank you for your interest, has to do with corporate investments. Again, I'm not disparaging anyone, but Bill Gates is one of the largest farmland owners in the nation right now. Corporations. that just are merely buying speculative farmland are one of the largest increasing owners. And these types of things really, really threaten family farms, beginner farmers, land access, and of course, what I call non-generation farms. My inspiration in becoming the policy chair for NOFA New Jersey 8 years ago, when I finished up my term, was I meet so many wonderful, cooler than I am even, okay? New Jersey, and this is all complimentary, and this is my inspiration, really cool bohemian, I think they call them millennials still, okay? Or Gen X, Y, and Z, but they are the coolest, but they don't come from farm families anymore. They're here in New Jersey, and they want to stay in New Jersey, and they want that land access, and they just need that third of an acre, that half of an acre, and you're going to hear about great programs about getting our young farmers. But there are a tremendous amount of young, inspired, non-generational young people in this state that keep me inspired. This consolidation, of course, is going to eliminate the aspect that I just touched on. Another aspect I want to really heighten for you is foreign ownership of U.S. farmland. Increasingly, okay, right now this is a current status map, and this shows that many, many states have acres that are owned by foreign countries. So our states have been very slow to adapt, and we have, and I'll show you on a chart, about 12 states that have some types of laws. New Jersey, really it's about 18 states that have arcane laws about foreign ownership, but clearly, right now, these are the top countries investing in our farmland on a nationwide basis. Canada with 31%, Netherlands 12%, Italy 7%, the UK and Germany. China reports a 0.9 ownership, but when I show you the numbers about China, I don't really drill into it, but some of the regulation that's coming is going to restrict China, Iran, Iraq. Those are already in place. Cuba, Venezuela, almost 6 countries now are prohibited from owning, and China recently, in the last 5 years, has really accelerated their ownership. Other things about corporate ownership I wanted to touch on was that recently 50,000 acres was bought in the Midwest around an Army base. And they don't know the actual owners of that corporation. Those types of lacking state laws, knowing really who the ownership is within the LLC, who's really buying our property, our farmland, who's going to feed, that's going to really secure our food security as a nation, is most concerning. Here's those, of course, numbers that you can see with Texas, in what states and what foreign ownership are the highest. And it was interesting to me, I just came back yesterday from Maine, and I took an all too arduous hike, and I didn't know what I was thinking. But in essence, of course, I want to show you what the purpose is. Most of the foreign ownership is in forest land. So we've got China, and we've got certain countries, and this is not disparagement against these countries. It's a fact, that's all. I'm stating objective information without any, negative. But in essence, of course, they're investing in our forest land. 29% of the foreign investment is in our cropland, and 22% is in pasture. So foreign ownership adds up to 3.1% of all the private land here in the United States, with over 40 million acres in private ownership, in foreign ownership. It's concerning. These, as I touched on, of course, are during 2023, states are getting with it. They're realizing as land prices increase and it becomes ill-affordable for family farms to continue, these foreign entities are really picking up farmland. And that indeed, of course, is quite a concern. That what they are enacting, of course, is going to become very restrictive. Certain states, as you can see, this is what it was, and this is the activity going on right now on the right. Certain states, Virginia, I have a very good presentation from Ag Law Institute. I recommend you see it. It says, it was a recent webinar called Who Owns the Land? And during that, states are quickly now going to enact laws that will allow and actually, of course, disclose ownership, also prohibit foreign ownership, And also, if there is, in some states, they have some HR bills federally that will actually divest and compel that foreign ownership back to U.S. ownership. So I'm encouraged, but please take interest in this. I have a lot of information on that. I can give you information on that. But realize that you need to get and start speaking to our legislators about this foreign ownership issue. Senator Cory Booker is very, very engaged. He is, I have an article about what he's doing, and in fact, he, of course, understands the fear of corporate ownership, the pressure in our farmland, not only here in New Jersey, but he sits on the Senate Ag Committee. So I encourage you to please contact Cory Booker's office, go to his webpage. There's many easily sign-on letters. I'm going to go on about the Farm Bill, which is ways to advocate, and that's my last slide after this. But this is something that I'm tailing into, of course, because Eric and Erin will speak gloriously about their wonderful programs as we work with them as well, is, of course, that the average price of New Jersey farmland is the highest in the nation. That you can see $14,400 is up 5.9% from 2020. Our farmland nationwide is about $4,800. Nationwide average. So here in New Jersey, how can a young beginner farmer get land access? It's prohibitive. It's really, that's when our agencies, our organizations assist those land access on our existing conservation lands through incubator farms. You can see the third bullet, urban agriculture. More action is needed. This is me speaking in the green, all right? And land preservation programs need to provide necessary capital. So just like Michelle just in her keynote emphasized, we preserve this land, but we need to make sure that when we get those farmers on that conservation land, that they succeed. So more investment on our conservation lands for fencing, for water, for equipment, so that we do the proper usage of our conservation lands to get much more organic and regenerative, as well as our beginning and underserved farmers and our intermediate farmers, young and old. You can be a beginner farmer at 50 or 60. Realize, all are encouraged. So in order to do this, we need to get more going on our conservation lands for them to succeed. Leasing, much of the leasing here in New Jersey is a handshake lease. So I'm the owner, I give you a year-to-year handshake. And once that fragility, it's a very subjective thing, but the owner of the land is never going to invest in that land. I, the farmer, don't know from year to year what that owner may do with that land. So I, in fact, of course, are not going to also invest in good soil health practices. So realize that, again, get engaged. Get engaged with regard to, supporting your local farmer. Join a CSA. Eat locally. These are all very important. Realize that a local recirculating economy is the best economy. And that's why we have to have much more bills, tax incentives for our farmers, payment for eco services when they do employ conservation services on our farmland to, in fact, create that continuity for soil health. It's all about soil health. Erin Schroll, who's an expert, as we all are, in soil health, who I have deep respect for, and she's going to marvel you about soil health. But with regard to soil health, that's where everything is. If we can really start getting down to low-till and no-till, interseeding, interplanting, all those things that I'm touching on with the last bullet, as well as educating that landowner, then I, the leasee, will have support and be able to increase soil health, to sequester carbon, to actually stop erosion. Certain states nationwide only have 12 more years of harvest left because of constant tillage. And I'm not speaking down on conventional farming. I support the whole farming community. But when you have aisles between your crops not covered, keep it covered, keep it green. That's what's going to save us with regard to climate change and agriculture, our emissions, and our soil health, and our carbon sequestration. My last slide. Obviously, you can tell it's all about advocacy. More advocacy and more advocacy. Don't be idle. Get up and do something for our farmers. Speak Get involved with your environmental associations. Go to a county ag board meeting. Organic and regenerative sales grew 13% nationwide last year. But now, of course, only less than 0.1%, only 0.5 billion from the USDA goes to organic and regenerative. There's been some boost in conservation funding for organic, but clearly much more is needed. You have such a growth in sale by the consumer, wanting less additives in their products, less pesticide exposure, less processing, eating raw foods, and yet the investment from the USDA is nominal. NOFA New Jersey's advocacy, very important. I have a small but mighty policy committee, and I have a wonderful executive director that I always need to mention, Devin Cornea, who's got the same policy passion that I do, and we attend numerous county board meetings. Show up, get familiar. If you go to those county ag meetings, you will get familiar, you will get your voice heard. I recommend that you do that. Our county ag board meetings, as of course I've become well acquainted, is where all the action happens. So that's where policy is really the place to begin, to let your voice know that how can we save that farm down the street? How can we create an incubator farm? How can we get a young farmer on that property? The one thing I do want to touch on is, of course, that we do have a very, very progressive Ag Assembly Committee. Here in New Jersey, we don't have a complementary Senate Ag Committee. We have only an Assembly Ag Committee. And they have heard our voices, our collective voices. Senator Cory Booker has heard our voices. We engage readily with our legislators. We have sponsored bills with them to try and create tax incentives for farmers, for land access, for soil health resolutions. NOFA New Jersey is a delegate at the State Farm Convention. If you have any policy issue that you'd like to call to my attention beyond, of course, cross-sectionally, what we're very engaged with, I welcome your input. Please take one of my cards at the end of my lecture. The top bulletin is one of the most important things that I'm going to end with. Right now is the recycling. Every 5 years is the Farm Bill. It is a huge, huge omnibus bill. And in that bill, most of the majority of the 12 titles within the bill are really for SNAP and for WIC. And yet now, as we speak, I saw the ticker today on the news, we're going down toward a shutdown. A shutdown. And yet it will threaten the SNAP recipients and many of our federal workers, as well as, of course, our public servants. So here, within the Farm Bill now, and today was actually the renewal date for the Farm Bill. And they've actually delayed that as well. So we have a window of time where they're projecting that the 850-page Farm Bill will actually hopefully be adopted by December of this year. Again, I encourage you, get engaged now. Now is the time. Please go to Cory Booker's page. He's really introduced something like I touch on here, the Opportunities for Organic Act. Many, many legislators, even in a bipartisan way nationwide, have submitted a lot of bills that help organic and regenerative, fairness for farmers, opportunities for organic, and those are called marker bills. I just want to educate you about the structure of the Farm Bill. So, of course, we as NOFA New Jersey and our wonderful liaison and our national organizations that we liaison with, we sign on, we write letters, we're voicing advocacy for this state and for the state of our national farm policies. So with regard to Cory Booker, he's introduced a lot of marker bills, and those marker bills can be found on the National Organic Coalition webpage. RAFI, which is another great organization I want to mention, which is the Rural Advancement Foundation International, they have a marker bill tracker, and you hope that with advocacy on bills that really heighten organic, regenerative, new, young, beginner, non-generational farmers, that those marker bills end up in the omnibus bill. So again, the Farm Bill is huge, it's important, and it's a very, very important time for you to get involved. Thank you so much. The last thing I'm going to actually be so excited about is that because NOFA New Jersey realizes that we need a seat at the table here in New Jersey. We worked with the Ag Assembly Committee, And I'm happy to tell you that with my executive director and I, we wrote a lot of the bill, and for the first time in New Jersey, soon, and 7 candidates, I've been facilitating names down to the governor's office, soon there will be, the first time in New Jersey, a New Jersey Organic Farming Board. So I'm happy to tell you of that accomplishment. We're getting a seat at the table, and we're getting a new approach. So realize that people are, oh, no for New Jersey? We've got to sit down with you, because we're up there. We're visible. We're at county ag meetings. So I hope I've inspired you. I hope your energy stay with you. Do not relent. Understand, food security is everything. One last thing on my soapbox is when a developer comes, and I've had to deal with developers in my administrative positions, when do we calculate the loss of food production when a property is developed? You go into a planning board, there's a checklist, you have to fill out certain things. When do we calculate when that warehouse gets proposed on farmland, the loss of our food production here in New Jersey? You really need to advocate, whether it's against a warehouse, another bag development. There's so many aspects to get involved with. I hope this has been helpful. I hope that you get excited. If anyone has any questions, we'll take them at the end. And I hope you found this interesting. Thank you.
So I'm Eric Derby. I work for the Foodshed Alliance. I like to tell people that the Foodshed Alliance helps farmers, we feed people, and we protect the environment. And these are a number of our programs that you'll see the logos for. The Local Share program is a gleaning program that collects from over 25 farms and delivers to almost 100 food programs in New Jersey for people in need. There's a big push for farm fresh food and nutrition in food pantries in New Jersey, and we've been doing that for over 10 years. And as if she doesn't have enough to do, Cali is probably our #1 volunteer for Local Share, gleaning, delivering to many of those pantries that we work with. We have the Paul and Skill Watershed program.
Tell them to volunteer.
Oh, of course, yeah. Yeah, Cali's telling you that you need to volunteer with the Local Share program.
It's great.
It is. You know, the Local Share program is 3 people, 3 employees, and at one point 150 volunteers. And that's really the 80-20 rule, because Cali's probably 80. With her volunteerism for the Local Share program. But that program doesn't get food delivered to over 100 programs in New Jersey by 3 employees. It needs volunteers, which really fell down during COVID. We're rebuilding those volunteer numbers, but that's a super important program. The Paul and Skill Watershed program is an advocacy program. It was helped start by the Nature Conservancy and other Ridge and Valley Conservancy to have a designation for the Paul and Skill to have a watershed. So we have that out of our office. The program that I operate is called SAGE, Sustainable Agriculture Enterprise. That's a farmland access program. The Farmland Access Program has helped get 11 new farm businesses started in the last 3 years. We operate on 3 different farms in 3 different counties: Sussex County, Warren County, and Hunterdon County. So here's a little bit of our impact from those programs. For instance, we have $200,000 in sales. We have a lot of programs. We operate a food hub program, which is very similar to our gleaning program, except we connect farmers, we buy the food from them, and we get it into food deserts, or as we like to say now, I think it was Karen Washington that coined food apartheid. The other program that I mentioned, the Paul and Skill Watershed program, we do a river-friendly certification. We've in the last 2 years, we've certified 11 farms that are on the Paulensville River. So they're best practices, no grazing in the streams, backing up from the streams with pesticides and fertilizers. And then again, that local share program over the years has delivered thousands of pounds of food that helped feed millions of people. And just keep in mind, I think 1 pound of produce is said to feed 3 people a meal. And we can go out to a field with volunteers. We do that 3, 4, or 5 times a week. We will deliver, we'll glean about 1,000 pounds. So that food is really valuable. And one of the innovations of that local share program are these free pop-up markets that we've created outside of low-income senior housing. So it looks like a community farmers market. We don't ask people for identification or how they found the program. We just ask, how many people are in your house? And then they're welcome to take as much as they need. So again, the SAGE program, 11 new farms. We encourage sustainable and regenerative practices, but at a baseline, the farmers that are awarded a 10-year lease through our program are asked to follow the National Organic Protocol at a baseline for their farming practices. Those leases are affordable. We charge $150 per acre per year. So a 5-acre plot is $1,000 a year for a farmer to operate. We did this on purpose. We knew that farmland access is the biggest challenge to keeping farmers farming and starting new farms. It's the most expensive in the country next to Rhode Island per acre for farmland. Our programs, we want farmers to invest in their land. So we don't ask for a lot of money. We operate that through our donations and grants to staff that. And what we've also tried to do is create shared infrastructure, our irrigation systems. We're developing a shared equipment program. All of these, the farms are diversified. I mean, I think that we were talking about some of the farmers. Cali was mentioning beginning farmers. You can be 50 and be a beginning farmer, of course. We have farmers that range from their 30s to their 60s. And the farmer that's in his 60s, it's his first entrepreneurial job as a farmer. He's worked for 17 years as a farmer for other people, and now this is his first business. So we have a lot of knowledge base, but it doesn't end there. So the Farmland Access Program is not just a farmland access program. We realized early on that regardless of our desire to create a land access program that served farmers with experience, and I say that as one of the criteria, we ask our farmers to have 2 to 3 years production experience to be able to be awarded a lease through our program. That's because we're not farm trainers, we're farm advocates. But it didn't take long for us to learn that farmers need continuing education, as we all do. So we connect them with business training through webinars and workshops and in-field demonstrations, whether it's business training or marketing, how to understand farm financials or writing your farm business plan. We want to build a program that helps farmers realize the viability of their future for their business plans. Well, I mentioned this a little bit. You know, New Jersey has preserved roughly 1/3 of our farmland. Partnerships with land conservancies that hold deed-restricted and preserved land allows for leases or subleases with our farm tenants. I'll explain that a little bit. we work closely with, we don't do this alone. We had an idea that we could create a program that was a farmland access program because we knew that we needed to. But then somebody presented us with the land. In Andover, we operate on 70 acres of farmland that's, that has 8 farm leases that are 10-year leases. And that program, we did it with the Nature Conservancy. The Nature Conservancy transferred the land to us. But to continue replicating this program, we saw the opportunity to work with conservancies throughout New Jersey as a great opportunity. Conservancies like the one we have a partnership with the New Jersey Conservation Foundation. We work closely with them almost daily on that program. We have a 19-acre farm plot in Surgeonsville in Hunterdon County. We have 3 farm tenants on that land. And the mission behind the conservancies especially, the forests and the streams are the edges of the farm for us. But for conservancies, the forests and the streams are the heart of what they're protecting. And what better practice to have an organic farm on the farmland that they own. So instead of having commodity crops that are sprayed with Roundup throughout the preserved farms that conservancies own, a pilot program like this, the SAGE program, that gives business opportunities to new farmers, what a perfect match. And if we can work together to build shared infrastructure and opportunity and protect the viability of the farm's business plans, I really think that we have a great formula for success that we'd like to see replicated by other conservancies throughout New Jersey and even throughout the country. So part of the process is we advertise when we have property available. Like I said, we have the property in Andover that's almost completely rented, leased. We have 6 acres there. We have a property in Hunterdon County and a property in Warren County. Those are fully leased. But when we have a property, we turn on the marketing for that property, we get a number of applications. And our process for vetting those applications has evolved. It was me reading the application, giving my board a recommendation, and then realizing our board never read the application. So I would stop giving them a summary and my recommendation, and we started asking them to read the applications themselves, come into an interview process with the farmer, ask them tough questions, because I am admittedly the Pollyanna of the group, and I'll say, wow, this is a great business plan, let's get going. And I have board members that ask much more difficult questions than I do, which is important, because if you're going to consider one of the toughest jobs in the country as you starting a business, you should be asked some tough questions, right? So if that farmer is passed through the interview process and we approve their application, then we onboard it with, we go through a lease process where we negotiate the lease for them. We find the property that's, that we've advertised, or that if it's vacant, they can choose their plot like we did in these lands when we started out. And then we have an annual check-in process. Are you in compliance with national organic protocols? How are you doing? Is there something that the Foodshed Alliance can help with to protect your business plan, to grow your business? I'm going to back up a little bit. When we started this program, I asked Erin Schroll to join me on a committee to formulate this concept. And Erin, shortly after that, said, I think I want a plot. And she was our first farmer, and I should say farmer, but she's an educator. She has a 5-acre student farm that focuses on horticulture and agriculture, and I'll let her tell you more about that if that's part of what you're presenting. So, but that was an important relationship, because when we developed that lease with the Sussex County Community College student farm, it was the Nature Conservancy's legal department, the SADC, the State Agricultural Development Committee, that reviewed the lease to make sure that it was in compliance with the deed of easement, which has rules to follow when the land comes to us. And I really think it's one of the strongest agricultural leases in the country, because of that legal team from the Nature Conservancy and the New Jersey State Agricultural Development Committee looking at that, protecting the lease, and with a real eye on protecting the farmer. So if for some reason the Foodshed Alliance sells that land or dissipates the organization, there's protections in there for the leases to survive the ownership, which is really important for that protection of our farmers. So I'm going to leave you with that. I think there's a lot more I could say, but I want to save time for my friend to talk and for your questions. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Now I can see people. Hi. I can't see over here so well. So let's see. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. Really a pleasure to be on this dynamic trio here, I have to say. I actually want to talk a bit more as I'm not a soil expert, just to throw that out there first of all. I'm learning, and as I learn, I get to teach, and it's the most, it's just one of the best things that we get to do as far as educators go. But I do want to speak about the challenges, and I have it as the challenges equal opportunities, not necessarily, but the challenges, you know, create the opportunities a lot of the times, right? And I feel like in our trio here, I feel like you know, Cali's kind of our eagle. She's flying quite high and broad, and Eric's a hawk. You know, they overlap. We all overlap. I'm feeling like I'm a bluebird. I got a field. I got some meadow. We're on the fence row, and honestly, I love being a bluebird on the fence line at Sage, because a lot of more bluebirds are coming to join us and sit there with us, and it's a lot of times my students, and I feel like our students they come alive at the farm. You know, I lecture, and I enjoy lecturing for the most part, but I can tell, you know, about 45 minutes in, not even 25 minutes in, their heads start nodding and they're falling asleep, and it's like, all right, let's go outside. And I often get, as you might imagine, a lot of kinesthetic learners, so they want to be out there actually doing it. And so that's the opportunity that we have by having this 5-acre plot at the Sage site. And I do realize that, you know, we have a unique situation as a student farm where we get to explore and create and experiment and innovate. But as we do that, we're learning, we are often documenting, and we want to turn around and educate as well. So with some of these challenges, we see the opportunity to like I said, implement some of these tools, but in that we can see an increase. I mean, the goal obviously to see an increase in yield, an increase in nutrition as far as our foods go, or our livestock, whatever the agricultural product may be. But it's also an opportunity to meet our neighbors and to get involved in our communities. So, and that speaks, you know, largely not just to our student farm, of course. So I feel like I'm in a little bit more of a microcosm, but I do see the big picture. And if we want to take it way out to the macro, I mean, we're the only planet in the universe that has the ability to grow food and sustain life. I mean, that's pretty amazing to even think about in that moment of when that all, you know, came to be. And so the soil piece, it always comes back for me to the soil conversation, and it hasn't always. Christine mentioned that my research and my master's work was on living roofs, so that's an engineered medium that's on the roof for the most part. It's not soil, it's soil-less, so it was a very different experience. But I love that I've been able to have those different experiences, which brings me back to what, really how it all began for me, and that was teaching people about indigenous uses of plants, and that was 20-some years ago. So I feel like I know a little bit about a lot of things, so I don't call myself an expert in anything, but maybe green roofs. And so if you ever want to, rivers, well, anyway, that's another lecture or conversation anyway. But I will say this, there's an opportunity for farms to have green roofs. Why not? Put them on the barns, put them on the shed, put them on the packing house. And why would we want to do that? We're getting some of the most incredible rainfall events lately, right? So we have a little rain garden in our space, and we want to increase that. We've noticed that we've started to mitigate some of the stormwater that's happening in the driveway area. We want to do more of that. So green roofs, bioswales, rain gardens, that's how Christine and I know each other from the rain garden world. Let's do it on the farm. There's no reason why we can't take advantage of that depressed area in the field that's just wet. Like, why not make it a rain garden? You don't have to work against it, right? Let's work with nature in that sense. So I find it a pleasure to be here to speak about these things, and focusing on my talk. Like I said, it all comes back to that soil conversation, which really is a big soil erosion being a big contributor to the pollutant of our rivers and our watershed. So it all is connected. And as I go through my little slideshow, I'll share with you some of some scientists, some agroecologists that you can look up and learn more about. So I'm just going to mention a few things as I go through. I'm glad I actually took the time to put in all these big pictures now, because I had to send it a different way, but my photos are mostly from a student worker of mine who is in the film studies, and at one moment I realized, okay, I'm going to have him take all my pictures now. So we're utilizing the expertise of our students to document some of these things as well, and we are documenting quite a bit. So again, the student farm is located at the Sage site, Sage at Muckshaw. So our student farm site is, like I said, at that Sage site, and we're really happy to be there. Again, I feel like we mentioned the emotional piece of people being connected with nature. I'd love to see more students out there. I'd love to see more people out there, more community groups out there. I've definitely seen how people change in their mannerisms when they're out on the farm and they get to see the insects or play or run or smell the earth or whatever it may be. So just to give you a perspective of where we're at, looking at that macro piece, we are located just south of Newton, so you can see going down into the student farm site. And I think I have a better slide here, which in partnership here with the Foodshed Alliance SAGE program, you can see our little student farm on the Sage at Muckshaw. And that's really cool too, because we get to border this Muckshaw Preserve that is another place where students can explore and get in touch with nature. And I want to explore. I haven't even taken those trails yet, but I got to do it. So we've been testing our soil for, well, I guess we started in 2020. We broke the farm up into 5 plots. These are the 3 sites that we've focused on more so recently. And like I said, it all starts with the soil. And so we have, over time, because the Foodshed did the smartest thing they could have done, and you've done a lot of smart things, Eric, sorry, but they put the land and cover crop right away. So I think that having that land and cover crop right away was important. This summer we decided to try what we call our soil buildings cover crop, and it It was a little challenging. I'm sure most of you are not surprised by the weather being a little bit of a challenge in our when to get the seed on the land. But with the help of the farmer that Eric mentioned, who's been on the, well, he's been a farmer for some time. He helped me with our cover crop plan. The soil building cover crop goals are building organic matter, increasing soil biology, and reducing compaction. And the cover crop seed we got from Green Cover Seed, which is a business out in Nebraska. And I consulted with them. It has 29 species in it. We inoculated with earthworm castings, and we also inoculated with some mycorrhizae as well. We did work with students on preparing the land, and we did a broadcast seed. So it was myself and 2 other students, and then Nick taking our pictures. And germination happened just five days later started. But there were certain species that didn't survive. All of the brassicas germinated, but then didn't survive. So that was an interesting thing. One farmer thought maybe it was the heat. We also had a lot of rain events, but I did see some of them start to germinate in the fall, which was interesting. And I just wanted to share that list of species, and 29 species. So why so many species? The research is showing, and this is some research from Dr. Christina Jones, that the diversity, and there's a lot of research out there now as far as how the diversity is increasing soil biology. And how does it do that? Because when you are inviting, it's kind of like when we invite all of our friends to the party, it's a better party, right? Everybody's bringing something to the party. It makes it more fun. But it's also, this is not just, well, I think it's more fun too, but it's also about, you could break this up into families and have 4 or more families is going to be ideal. But I just wanted to share our list. I did work with Green Cover on it. There are some that didn't germinate as well, but again, for whatever reason, the chicory didn't, but we had chicory in a lot of other places. So the diversity of species is really about that biology, bringing the biology in. So we inoculated the seeds with earthworm castings, and again, we inoculated with some mycorrhizae. The castings are high in bacteria, so that's getting that bacterial inoculation, whereas the mycorrhizae came in, and I purchased that from Fedco Seeds. And why do we do that? Because again, research is showing that when you, and this is Dr. James White at Rutgers University, it's showing that it's kind of like you're priming the seed to have that relationship the moment that the radical emerges. And it really is fascinating to see. Dr. James is doing some amazing work, just podcasts or YouTube him if you want to learn more. The other thing that we're finding is, when I first started, well, I don't know if it was, it was when I first started. I started out being very inspired about soil from a scientist, Dr. Elaine Ingham's. He spoke in Canby, Oregon. All my academic work was out in Oregon. And anyway, that's kind of where this all began. But I remember learning that our annual crops, like more of a bacterial situation, which I think is still true, but what we're finding is that there are a lot of annual crops that do have a mycorrhizae relationship. So I think that's a really awesome thing to learn. And it's also, we're seeing it. So we can literally pull up some of those crops and literally see some of the mycorrhizae. So we're pretty excited about all of that. And this is one of my student worker, Caitlin, who she did the inoculation. She's spreading it out on the newspaper here to kind of dry, because you can't really broadcast it when it's wet. She's doing that in the shade, so we kept everything in the shade until we went out to do the seeding. We also added biochar, which I learned about biochar at some point along the way, and I always learned that biochar was all about that mycorrhizae, so giving the mycorrhizae a place to live, or the biology a place to live, little nooks and crannies for them to live. But there's other added benefits, and I actually just learned this last weekend at the Women in the Woods, or Women of the Wood, I was saying Women in the Woods, but anyway, it was a retreat, and Dr. Leslie Sauer spoke about biochar and how it's contributing so much to carbon sequestration. So she's encouraging it in the forests as well. Biochar was discovered when they found a very fertile area in the Amazon and was kind of perplexed by it, and learned that the indigenous folks were really incorporating a very similar product. So if you want to learn more about biochar, you can look it up. There's a lot of complicated mechanisms you can put together or purchase to make it, but this is how we make it right now. And this is, again, farmer Peter Tischler, he's the man. We're digging a hole, burning the wood to a certain place. You can kind of see over here with the shovel, it kind of gets to that, it's not broken down to ash, right? It's more of like a coal, and then we cover it with soil and smother it at that moment because it needs to be in a fairly anaerobic, anaerobic condition to create the biochar. We're going to look at this under the scope and see if we're getting the right structure, because there is something to that as well. But there's a lot of other benefits. So what else? So what else? We got vermicomposting going on. Foliar nutrients is a good way to add nutrients to your plants. Plant extracts, that's something I'll save for another day because that's a longer conversation. And then composts. Johnson Sioux is another one we want to explore. And then also incorporating animals onto the land and love, right? We love it. We're loving it. And I think that's a big part of it. Other opportunities are the diversity. So planting, companion planting might be a common term, but just getting the diversity onto the land. And incorporating natives. So the natives are for the pollinators to some extent. I feel like there's a lot of benefits to it. I feel like it goes way beyond that. And then collaborations. So I love this one because it's collaboration. This is a SAGE circle that was designed by some students that the Foodshed Alliance worked with and we ended up working with. And then this is a native sage plant. Incentives. So North Jersey R&C&D, Nate's here to talk about their incentives for cover crops and our CS equip grants. I shared this Department of Agriculture from Maryland because they have a very successful cover crop program, and I think we're on our way too. So getting more cover crop on the land. And then this is education becomes another opportunity. I brought our little flyers here. These are the classes we offer, and feel free to contact me at any point. I'd be happy to talk more. And that's just a picture of our site early spring, and here we are more recently with our site at the student farm and at Sage. So thank you.
Thank you so much. So this has been such a great workshop, and I wish we had a full session to really dive into these a little deeper, but thank you all for coming. What we're going to do is turn it over to a couple audience questions right now. So if you have a question, just raise your hand and I can bring down the microphone to capture your question. Okay.
Thanks. Hi, I had a question about maybe whether or not there are different challenges for livestock farmers in North Jersey as compared to farmers that are crop farmers, and just understanding the difference between them and different challenges they might face.
In due respect, is that a policy question or is that a management question?
It's more of a management question. I work with farmers, so I'm just curious about that. If there is any differences and challenges.
Livestock integration, or with livestock, of course, there are many dairy farms. There were many dairy farms here in New Jersey, and through the years, I think we're down to about 43 dairies that are left. But the other inspirations of our cattle owners is beef, and beef is really a great market. I know the Department of Agriculture is working on locating 2 regional sites in New Jersey. They've done a pilot program, and of course the frustration in processing and growing out your cow at the right time and getting that livestock process depends on getting an appointment down in Delaware or in Maryland, and you've got to make sure your cow is grown out at the right time to get that slot, to get that beef processed. So I'm happy to hear, as I absolutely readily communicate with the Department of Agriculture and with the Assistant Secretary and through Rutgers, that indeed, I think, in the next 2 years, we will have here up in North Jersey, in Warren County, and I understand somewhere, I believe, in Burlington County, will be a processing plant. USDA has some grants out there. Unfortunately, certain states didn't get it, and our state didn't get one, but they are also realizing the need of our cattle processors, small scale. Our meat industry nationwide is monopolized. 4 companies control all of our meat in this country. And in doing so, there are, of course, federal efforts legislatively to break up those monopolies, but our ranchers, small and large, really don't have a choice, or what they call a contract library. That's another aspect. In the pork industry, there's something called a contract library, where I can look up, pricing is transparent, I have choices who I can sell to. That has yet to be developed on the national level. But here in New Jersey, the demand is great. Our chefs want local, wonderful, grass-fed beef. So I'm hoping, of course, with the obvious growth in beef industry and our livestock. As far as livestock integration, it is a holistic method. To have those cows rotationally graze is only, again, associative to soil health. I hope that's helpful.
I'll just add that I think it's hilarious that Cali looked at us to say, oh, you guys could answer this, and then she comes up with an answer like that.
Is biochar another name for charcoal?
So it's not necessarily. I mean, it's biological char, essentially, so it's meant to, it's natural, right? And like I said, there are ways that you can make it more, like what we're doing is very rudimentary, right? You can make it more complicated, but again, you're gonna get this, there's several different structures that can occur in the pyrolysis, process. So you can get a more stable structure if you want to take it to that next level. Like I said, we're going to look at ours under the microscope, see if we're reaching that or achieving that. But I think that might be what makes it much different. Of course, charcoal, you would obviously want to use, for biochar, you're going to use a natural substance, right? So you could use wood, which is what we're using, but you could also use corn stalks, you could use hemp, you could use a lot of different materials.
I don't necessarily mean the charcoal briquettes for barbecuing, but when they used to make charcoal 100 years ago, the process looks the same.
There you go. 100 years ago, yes.
Great.
Yep, before we complicated everything, yes.
This has all been fascinating, and it's the future of agriculture. Do you get a sense that our elected and appointed officials know the future of agriculture and can actually represent us on this?
Advocacy is everything. Everything. It's the passion in our hearts. Don't ever forget that. Take a pause. Look around. Get involved. Our Ag Assembly Committee has become very progressive. Assembly Fryman is very, very in tune with organic and regenerative agriculture. Cory Booker has been out on numerous farms here in New Jersey. They're all campaigning now. Many of our offices are up for re-election, so realize they are engaging. Andy Kim, another wonderful federal senator, is very engaged in farming. Legislative breakfasts. I'm trying to enumerate a very concise answer so you understand that between the County Board of Agriculture meetings that we're engaged with, talking to farmers, talking to our Ag Assembly Committee, commonly they reach out to NOFA New Jersey. I reach out to our liaison organizations, our, of course, Interstate Policy Committee on NOFA, and we work together to actually, create input. But when I tell you readily that I am sent bills from our Ag Assembly Committee, Assembly Sawicki, I want to raise his voice, Assembly Fryman, Assembly Spearman, and the rest, the balance of the Ag Assembly Committee, they understand climate change. They know organic and regenerative. So I want to really encourage you that we are very encouraged about our engagement. They tackle us. They want to meet with us. They want to meet with all of us, and our voices are heard. So please, please, contact us. We understand what's going on, but we want to hear from you as well directly. I hope that's helpful, but feel encouraged. We're really optimistic. And again, the Organic Farming Board, it's coming. They're going to hear the New Jersey agriculture. And we made sure, again, just to underscore, and in wonderful respect to your question, we made sure in that bill that the meetings will be quarterly, the meetings will be regional, but we made sure that in the bill it says that the Department of Agriculture must respond to our farmers and the board's requests within 30 days. Response, activity, advocacy. We don't remain idle, all of us. So remain passionate.
Thank you so much. What a perfect way to end our session. So I realize that some of you may still have questions, but feel free to take all the information that they have here, and we can share their contact information as well. And please be in touch. But thank you again to all of our panelists. That was such a great workshop.